What's up, YouTube? This is D from Brooklyn, checking in and going over some lighting issues that I noticed with the Dsunys. For those of you that aren't a subscriber, click the subscribe button right now. Give me a thumbs up because right now we're going to talk about little issues with the Dsuny LEDs and some issues you may find with LEDs in general, especially when you have to program. I'm going to start off by saying I am not sponsored by Dsuny in any shape, form, or fashion. I pay for everything for this tank. I don't get no donation. A brother is in hustle mode all the time. So with that being said, let's start off with the issues with the programming. I've had these lights for about, I want to say 5 years now. Is it 5 years? I think it's looking like 5 years, maybe more. I could be wrong. First and foremost, I've kept a lot of different kinds of coral in here. Right now, the tank is not full to its capacity. I had a huge overgrowth of leather corals and Kenya trees. I went through a time when I pulled a lot of the Kenya trees off. If you guys are members of the Brooklyn Aquarium Society, you will have seen a lot of them at the meetings. Let me go in for a close-up here. This area right here was the home of what I used to call my mother tree. My mother Kenya tree was in the middle of the high flow area, and therefore it was constantly growing, which is good for the Dsunys. And to stay on topic, when you have a tank of 6 feet or more, you tend to have multiple light fixtures. And this is how this pertains to lighting. You have stronger points, which are directly under the lighting, and you have dimmer points, which are getting ambient lighting. And since on this tank, I have 3 Dsuny LED units, this spot right here is like my first set of lights. Let me just take this camera so you can see. Okay, this is the shot of the tank, and this, if I can get into focus, is the bank of lights. So right here is my first unit, and underneath you can see it's really not a gap, but you can see by looking under there I have supports and braces. So this is a main area, a stronger point under the lighting, where if I'm going to put a new coral there, I kind of place it as such. So now let me just set the camera back up. Pause. So the Kenya tree was growing really fast. And since it was in a high flow area, it was dropping babies and they would flow down to the other side of the tank. It was just Kenya tree in here, Kenya tree there, Kenya tree there, and it started getting aggressive. So I pulled a lot of them out. So you'll see predominantly cabbage leather, devil's hands, various mushroom corals, purple, green, recordias in the really low areas. And I attribute that to the light and the placement of light. So one of the problems that I had, not really a problem, is one of the main questions I get in regards to the lighting is, what's my program? I'm really hesitant to give people a program because every tank is unique. If you have a lot of white rock, light is going to reflect. If you have a deep tank, light, you're just going to have penetration problems. If you have a lot of rock, you may need less light. If you have a little bit of rock where the light can hit all areas of the tank, you may not need as much light. So I don't go into giving out people programs, but if you want to see the program I use for this tank, check in my previous videos. You can just type Dsuny settings, that's DSUNY settings, and you'll see I put my program on there. Now, as time has gone by, I've played with the programming, and I've just come back to what has consistently worked for me. But the Dsuny has pre-programmed settings on it. So you can just go with the presets, see what you like, and write down the settings and tweak it from there. But let me go into what problem I had of late. Okay, we're at the program control. Now, I got a really panicked text from my daughter. My daughter's the one that usually comes home, looks at the tank and sees if there's anything that looks absurd. And she said, Dad, I'm home and your lights are off. And I said, okay, what time is it? I looked at my watch and it was only like 5 o'clock. So I'm like, wait a minute, I had my lights cutting on late. Why would they be off? And what I noticed is that the control panel was not following my program, but it was following some other program that was in the hub. So I looked at the time and it was basically 1900, which is 7:30, which is when I went home. And all the settings here were on 0000, which means that they were off, like they were on nighttime mode. So there was a problem. I reached out to Dsuny, and as many of you have found out, I didn't get an answer. And so that raised me to playing around with the control head. I even removed the light panels. I put the second one first, put the first one second to see if it was maybe communication with the master and the slave, which it was not. So that was a real pain in the neck moving that for nothing. And basically I was playing with the settings and I happened to stumble into something interesting. I went into the moonlight settings. Let me focus here. It's hard to focus on LED lighting. But I went into the moonlight settings and I went into lunar cycle, which turned all the lunar lights on. And you can see, looking at the tank, it just kind of increases the blue lighting and keeps them running. So when the main tight light program goes off, it has a blue moonlight. If you guys have been in the hobby a long time, we used to put moonlights on the tank separate from the LEDs before we were able to program these for that setting. So I noticed, okay, the lights are working, but there was a programming problem. So then I went into no lighting and the lights cut off again. So you'll see that according to this, moonlights will come on from, this is military time, 1900, which is 7 p.m. to 5:59, which is 5:59, or rather 6 a.m. in the morning. You'll have a blue moonlight period. So I was running that until I could figure out what the hell the problem was, which I really didn't figure out. But if any of you guys have run into that problem, I hit this option, accord mode set, which means according to the mode that you're setting, and I hit that. And when I went back, my program kicked back in. So I'm like, okay, what the hell is going on here? So then what I did was go into my program mode. Let me go back. I looked at the settings here and said channel 3 is at 90%. So channel 3 is one of your purple lights, if I remember right. So I went into my program mode. And for those of you that are like already ready to like switch off the channel because you're looking at programming, you're like, I hate programming, it's too complicated. There's a reason why, if I can focus, let me go back. There's a reason why I'm explaining this. The reason why I'm explaining this is we spend way too much energy programming freaking lights. Let me tell you something. I'm gonna say it again. We spend way too much time programming lights. You do have to remember that before there were LEDs, we put T5s on the tank, they cut on and they cut off. There was no programming. If you had purple plus, if you had coral blue plus on there, it stayed one setting all day until they cut off, and we grew everything. So the reason why I'm saying that is the program was working again. But guess what? The program that was running, which wasn't mine, was working too. So I'm like, okay, I put all of this energy into programming my own settings when whatever the pre-program mode was, which is in the pre-set settings, you have cycles, you have acclimation, you have fast glow. Apparently, they will support life too. So that was the deal. Now, the good point of the story is my program started working again. The moral of the story is we spend way too much time micromanaging these tanks when they really don't need the extent of complication that we are putting into them. Remember, I'm an advocate, the KISS method. Keep it simple, stupid. Keep it simple. The more technologically complex your tank is, the more of a headache it's going to be when something goes wrong. And it should not be a headache to take interest in a hobby that you want to have fun in. If it's a headache, you don't want to do it. So this is D saying, yes, there was a problem with the Dsunys. I help myself figure it out by just going through the settings and fiddling around the control panel. But in the short, I realized I didn't need to do all that programming because the coral was still open and things that were growing were still growing. I still had polyp extension. It's simple. My tank is really simple. I try to keep it simple. I want you to keep yours simple. This is D signing out with a quick ramble. It was a ramble. But keep it simple. Don't kill yourself. Don't overcomplicate things. Look both ways crossing the street. That's just a fun tip. All right. This is D signing off. Keeping my sanity by keeping my tank simple. Kiss method, baby. Love, peace, and hair grease. See ya. Hakuna Matata. What a wonderful phrase. Do 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 do. Hakuna Matata. Da, da. Ain't no passing race.